conversation with an icon who's often referred to as the eldest statesman of India, Inc. Mr. Narayana Murthy, thank you so much for talking to ET Now. It's a pleasure having you on the channel.
Thanks, Chandra. It's always a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much, sir. So I want to start with a subject, which has really put you in the spotlight in the last week. The whole debate around innovation and research. You, of course, cited an MIT study to show, the innovations that they have come out with from the university. Elaborate a bit on really where we are falling short and what needs to be done. Do you think you were also perhaps a little misunderstood by social media?
No, let me say this. You see, IISc is clearly #1 research institute in India in science and engineering. And I have said that right in the speech. If people read my speech, they will hopefully understand what that's all about. Second, when I was invited to give the convocation address at IISc, I started preparing. I was in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and I got a booklet called 101 Gifts of Ideas from MIT. I went through that, and I found that there were several earth-shaking inventions, not innovations, please kindly understand the difference, inventions that made the life of common man better. For example, GPS. We all use GPS today in your mobile. Viterbi algorithm. Without Viterbi algorithm, we wouldn't be able to use our mobile sets. Then RSA encryption. Without the RSA encryption, we would not be able to transfer money securely. Then email. Ray Tomlinson. Email. We all use email today, right? Like that, I chose just 10 of them, and just 2 weeks ago, it was announced that Professor Geeta Bhatia of MIT, she has invented, she and her team of course, a new way of checking for cancer through a non-invasive technique, that is through urine sample. Now, these are all truly earth-shaking inventions that have made the life of common man on the street better. So I said, when I am speaking to the students of the premier research institution in India in science and technology, I have to raise their aspirations. I have to talk to them and compare them with another such premier institution. Right from day one, for the last 40 years, I have always been comparing whatever little I do with the world's best. And then say, how can I learn? How can I improve? At Infosys, that's what we did right from day one. So therefore, I think we should not be very thin-skinned. We should look at data and facts and then judge whether we are there or not. If we are not there, it's all right. But at least we should have aspirations to do such things. We should work hard towards doing such things. We should say, what is it that we need to do in our curriculum, in the way we govern our higher education institutions, so that India too can produce such wonderful inventions. That's all there is to it, nothing.
Right. I think
unnecessarily writing silly statements in Facebook and Twitter, I think that only shows the ignorance of people. If only they read my speech, if only they read in what context I was saying, I think they would understand that. But anyway, I ignore all of that.
And you also mentioned the two innovations which as an industry...
Look, there is a lot of technology that was developed behind global delivery model and the 24-hour workday. And today, software companies all over the world use it. I don't want to mention specific names, but everybody in the software services area uses it. So therefore, I was only saying I want an IISc, I want an IIT Madras, IIT Kanpur to produce such things that will become global standards. That everybody in the world will say this came from IISc, this came from IIT Madras. You see how nice it would be.
Absolutely.
That's
And
it.
talking broadly about the next wave of innovation, every day we read so much about automation and artificial intelligence. Is the next wave of innovation also going to come from the services sector, or is it going to come? Are we really prepared to meet all these technologies head on?
Well, I think the reality is simply this. Unless you bring inventions and innovations to the table, we will not succeed in the long term. The fact that this industry has created the largest number of jobs, the fact that this industry has contributed so much to our foreign exchange reserves, the fact that this industry has created jobs for literally 200,000 or so, whatever, 150,000 engineers every year, that clearly states that this industry has done something which other industries in India had not done so far. So therefore, I am confident that this industry will continue to focus on new ideas in making ourselves relevant to the customer. Absolutely, no doubt about it.
Right. Ms. Murthy, the lesser talked about fact is, could this lead to some sort of social crisis? Because as you said, the employment that they generate is huge for engineers, and because of this, we have so many engineering colleges in India. But now with technologies such as automation and AI and platforms coming in, do you believe we are staring at a social crisis in a sense?
No, I don't think so, because remember, before telephone was invented, automatic telephone exchanges were invented, there used to be operators who will connect the caller with the intended person, etc. So a lot of people employed in doing that. But when telephone exchanges came, they were all rendered redundant, but they got other jobs. Similarly, in banking, when there was no core banking software, everything was done manually, right? And lots of people were used to do that, but there were lots of mistakes. They couldn't scale it up and all of that. With the core banking solution, the banks have expanded. Now ATMs came, right? ATMs provided the facility of withdrawing money near your place. But that has not stopped the growth of banks. That has not stopped growth of jobs. So therefore, I am a firm believer that technology, while it replaces one kind of job, it will create a higher level of jobs. Absolutely.
What could be the replacement here?
No, I mean, it depends on the industry, it depends on how fast that industry is growing, it depends on the competition, it depends upon how well they use technology. So I can't give a general prescription, I can't give a specific prescription, but I can definitely say that based on the data available for the past, 100 years or so, it is very fair to say that technology, while it will replace jobs at a lower level, it will create jobs at a higher level. So the name of the game is, we have to retrain our people, we have to ensure that our people are smart enough to absorb and graduate to the new kinds of jobs. That is our responsibility. That's the responsibility of the country, that's the responsibility of the society.
Right. Ms. Murthy, I also wanted to get a sense from you as an industry person on the e-commerce sector, the rapid rate of growth that we are seeing in India. It's something that a lot of traditional business leaders are not able to comprehend, how these companies get such astounding valuations without turning in a profit with so much cash burn. Is this sustainable? Is it because we are not used to seeing these business models in India? How would you really describe this phenomenon?
No, the reality is simply this. A market functions when there is a buyer and there is a seller. And the buyer and the seller in some way together decide the price. If the seller puts the price at a very high level, there may be fewer buyers. If the price is right, there will be a lot of buyers, and automatically price goes up, right? That's the law of demand and supply. So therefore, I would not be too much worried about whatever happened in e-commerce area. I think after all, it is nice to see youngsters in their 20s and 30s have their share of limelight with such wonderful valuations. And the people who put money on the table, they would have done their due diligence. Let us be very, very clear. They would have done their due diligence. They would have compared these people with global options, and they would have had other role models. So therefore, who am I to say that that's not right? So I wish the best to all these youngsters who have got wonderful valuations, but they must all remember that the game is only starting now. The real game is when they get to a steady state, when they have to control costs, when they have to enhance their revenues, when they have to become profitable. And that, I am sure, with the kind of encouragement they have got today, with the kind of confidence they have today, I believe that these youngsters will do very, very well. As you move into the future a few years from now, you will be applauding them. I have no doubt about it.
But apart from the consolidation, which is inevitable, we are not staring at a bubble. I mean, it's not comparable to the 2000 scenario, so to speak.
No, first of all, let's remember that India is a very small player in the global scenario. Therefore, I don't think that issue exists. And after all, these are all our youngsters. So let us pray that they succeed. Let's pray that they will come to a steady state pretty quickly. Let's make sure, let's pray that they will be successful over a long time. Instead of just saying, no, no, there's a bubble, they will go down in a few years. No, I don't want to say that.
Is the enthusiasm there in business circles as well, like what it was last year? Has it waned a little, and expectations are more realistic today, you know, rather than the exuberance that we saw here?
Well, we have to look at two issues here. First of all, this is the first time in 30 years when a single party has won a majority. This had not happened for 30 years. When last time was when Rajiv Gandhi won that huge majority. So, therefore, the expectations of people are very high. And Mr. Modi is a charismatic personality. He speaks extremely well. He can rouse the crowds. He has gone on to various countries and raised the image of India. All of that has happened. So the expectations of Indians and in some way of NRIs and some people outside India too are very, very high of performance of this government. That is why people are restless. I would say today people are very, very restless because they want to see some big bang stuff happening. But before you can have any big bang stuff, there's a lot of preparation that's needed. So therefore, I presume that the government is working on creating a good foundation for that big bang to happen. I hope that is so. That's what I would say.
How would you define Big Bang? I mean, it means different things for different people. Some would say
no,
GST,
for example,
some
1991. Simple. 1991 was a Big Bang. Right? In one stroke of pen, they abolished licensing. They brought in current account convertibility. They abolished the Office of Controller of Capital Issues. That was a Big Bang. So, whether we will see that kind of Big Bang is what is needed now. Now, different people have obviously different perception of that Big Bang.
Right.
So I don't want to comment on it because what I would think of as Big Bang may be different from some other sector. But I do think that at least in the area of IT, if Digital India takes off, if the government works out modalities of working with Indian companies in a fair manner, if the trust of Indian companies in the government is restored, and if the bureaucrats spend the amount of time that is required with these companies in defining the requirements, in making sure that the software is all implemented well, the hardware is working, etc., etc., I think there will be a huge big bang opportunity in India for the IT industry in India.
Yeah. And what else needs to be done with respect to the ease of doing business? I think the FCRA is something that you have mentioned.
Yeah, I think the second point that we have to remember when we talk about India is, this is a nation where apathy is our staple diet. We have all been brought up on apathy.
Right.
Action is not our forte. We see things not happening around us, but we don't care. That has happened in previous government, in governments before that, for time immemorial it has happened. I mean, look at, for example, the Bangalore metro. It's still not there at Jayanagar, right? That airport doesn't have a metro connection. You go to any other city, you go to Bangkok, you go to KL, you go to Shanghai, you go to Beijing, they're all done, right? So therefore, we are not a nation that is hungry for change. So, for example, look at the Innovation University bill. It has been now pending for almost 10 years.
Right.
Right? So, even this FCRA was introduced in 2010. At that point of time, I only wish that the people who drafted this bill had consulted or had looked at the fact that we were living in post-liberalization era. Because liberalization took place in 1991, and they said IT companies and tech companies can have 100% foreign ownership. Then they said banks can have 75% foreign ownership, right? Telecom companies can have that kind of ownership and all of that. No, in such an environment, to say that any company wherein 50% of the equity is held by foreigners will be called a foreign company, even if the company is registered in India, even if it's listed in India, even if it pays tax in India, even if it employs by and large the Indians. I think that shows that our drafting of laws requires a lot of thinking, a lot of detailing, and a lot of consulting. Right. It's a classical example.
Right. Final question on the reforms bit, sir. How crucial will bills like the GST and the land acquisition bill really be to, curb the restlessness in the business community to a certain extent?
I think it is very important, as Mahatma Gandhi said, that in India we rise above party politics in terms of doing what is good for the country, in terms of making it easy for corporations to create employment. Therefore, I think the current effort of the government in making the land bill more acceptable or more fairer to corporations, I think is something that all of us should support.
Right, and rise above party politics.
Absolutely,
and not.
Absolutely.
So the opposition also needs to play a more constructive.
And then we belong to a party. So
the opposition also has to play a more constructive.
I think absolutely. There is no doubt about it.
Right. The final part of my interview, sir, is really about philanthropy. Now the Companies Act, of course, mandates it. But how much of a role can this really play in, transforming India, in changing India? You recently had Azim Premji, who's, pledged an additional stake for his foundation. Do you think Indian businessmen are now more willing to really give, to the community?
No, I think there are several people who have done before. I mean, Tatas are a great example, Birlas are a great example. Infosys did it long time before. I mean, the very stock option in some sense is that, right?
Wealth creation.
We gave away as much as $11 billion by today's prices to our employees. And that is the biggest philanthropy you can think of, right? No other company has done it. So I think philanthropy is nothing new in India. But having said that, let me tell you that philanthropic efforts are not what will transform India.
Right.
They are needed,
right,
but they are at the fringe.
Right.
They will impact on small parts, small sections of the society. But what is needed is good public governance. If you have good public governance, then you can make life easier for the poorest of the poor. You can make access to basic education, basic health care, basic nutrition and basic shelter easier for the poorest of the poor. So unless we get to a good public governance model which focuses on transparency, accountability and fairness and speed of decision making and excellence in action, excellence in execution, I think the philanthropy efforts will only play a very small marginal role. I don't think philanthropy can solve the problems of India. Anybody who thinks philanthropy can solve the problems of India?
Right.
I don't know if that's...
Sure. When can we expect you to play a more active role in, the government committees or... Because,
already I am the chairman of...
There was a hope that, technocrats will play a role in transformation. I mean, with people like Nandan Nilekani and B. Balakrishnan participating in the elections last year, but now, they have turned investors.
I'll tell you, Chandra, it is time that we overcame these party ideologies in some very important ministries. People like Nandan, people like Mohandas Pai. I mean, I know these two very well, that's why I'm mentioning their names. These people can contribute very significantly. They are people of the highest order. It doesn't matter what party ideologies they have.
Right.
They should be part of constructing, of reimagining India and creating an India of which every child is proud of. Therefore, I would go above party affiliations in attracting such people. Like in the US, you see, I mean, the president appoints Republicans, Democrats, it doesn't matter. It's done purely on who is the best person for the job. I think we have to start that in India.
Here's hoping that happens soon, sir. Such a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for talking to ET Now. Thank you.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/ETNow and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at ETNowLive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/ETNow.